Hi, my name is Charles Jeffrey, and I'm a fashion designer. My top three creations in this whole time that I've been doing my kind of creativity into the world, I'd have to probably say my claw shoes. I love the footwear that we do. So basically we developed this footwear that has like claws coming out of it. And I just think it kind of represents like all of those elements that you mentioned, like the kind of the anarchic punk kind of element, the sense of humor, the playfulness, and it's all kind of tied into a very traditional mule, like a menswear mule. So that kind of idea of playing with something that's quite traditional, I really love that. And the second product I'd probably say is our Loverboy tartan. So we have our own tartan that we developed years ago, and it's actually inspired by a picture of me with blue makeup and a red dot on my face from when I used to party, and I was the actual character of the Loverboy. And so we made a tartan that looked like that picture. And yeah, that's kind of been taken on the tartan registry board. So it's an official Scottish tartan. It's like quite a difficult thing to get on there. So that now is like our house tartan. And then our final thing, I'd say, I did a body of work recently with Abbey Road Studios, and I made a series of artworks that were in relation to an artist playing on the piano. So I'd never painted like that before. So I was painting and then he was sort of like playing piano at the exact same time. So it was this really weird kind of involvement between music and art, and it was a really great kind of sort of experience. So I've got those artworks now on my wall in my studio. So yeah, those are three things I love. Well, I feel being able to kind of learn about the techniques and how you can sort of channel any sort of avenue into a fashion sort of outcome through, you know, doing this for so long. I find now as an adult on this planet, you know, like being interested in politics, seeing how things are kind of going on in the world, like I can't necessarily comment on politics necessarily through my work, but what I can do is I can create metaphors with the kind of creativity that I'm using. And so if I want to comment or speak on something that I feel passionately about, whether it's identity, whether it's inequality, whether it's about joy or empowering people, you know, those are things that I can use sort of like lateral things like fashion design or art or music to speak to. And I think any good art speaks about the world around itself. And so I think the idea of kind of being anarchic in sort of fighting back or speaking up can be done in an intelligent way that's through creativity rather than just necessarily saying, I don't like this. You know, that's important and that's for other places, you know. So I think when COVID happened, it was quite interesting because our brand actually did really well. You know, our brand grew. And I think it was because of the fact that people were at home. They did have more income from the government to be able to buy more things. And also the Loverboy was colourful and it was fun to see online, and it was kind of objects of joy and people felt comfortable with them. And I think that was quite interesting for us to see as a key part of the brand that people wanted from us. So, you know, we learned a lot from that experience, and I think it still resonates now that people come to us for moments of joy, moments of humor, moments of pleasure, but then also kind of they know a lot more about the brand in order to kind of like, you know, make that decision. Brexit was a really interesting one because it really dismantled London Fashion Week. It kind of destroyed our ability to show in the place that we have our studio. And I kind of feel a little bit sad about that because there's so many spaces in London that I would love to do my shows in and love to have a relationship with. We just did one in Abbey Road Studios, as I mentioned before, which was amazing. But, you know, we're now showing in Paris. And I think the thing that I want to do as a result of Brexit is to continue to talk about British culture, Scottish culture, and show that to this kind of Parisian landscape. You know, I don't know if there's many Scottish designers out there as much anymore. You know, we had the designers like Christopher Kane, Alexander McQueen was Scottish. You know, these are people that have those roots. And I think I have a responsibility as a Scottish person to kind of showcase that world of my land to the people of Paris. So. So wholesale, I just see it as like a choppy ocean. You never know what's going to happen. You know, you can definitely have a lot of stores that are very reliable, and you can build a customer base through those stores. But it can, you know, geopolitics can affect lots of things. You know, we can see recently from some of the things that have happened over in America, some things that happen in China also can affect how, you know, things are, how my brand is picked up. But ultimately, I think that what it's made me realize is that you have to have a very strong consistency with your brand message. And it's fine to have interests in other places and to diversify and to show your customer that your brand is identified with things. But, you know, you go to Vivienne Westwood for romance, and you go to Alexander McQueen for something a bit more tougher. And for Loverboy, maybe you go for us to have something that makes you smile, or something that also makes you feel like you're listening to your favorite punk band or something like that, you know. So I think we've tried to express those values with consistent product, you know, whether it's with our tailoring, with our shirting, with our knitwear. You know, we want to offer a wardrobe that's trustworthy, that's reliable, that is timeless as well. So I think that's the main thing for me in terms of the business model, is just making sure that we are showing newness, but also being kind of quite consistent with our message. You know, you think about Loverboy, you think about 3 things straight away. You know, that's what I want to try and get my customer to start thinking of us. Yes, so on top of like thinking about my customer and being consistent there, we're also thinking about how we can enter the customer's life in other places. So we're diversifying into beauty. We're also diversifying into a more made-to-measure line as well. So the idea is like that we are able to have some more pickup products that people can just literally put on their face. And then also having something that if someone wanted to wear us to a red carpet event or to a special dinner or to a wedding, they know that they can come to us for that craft. Because like the thing that I love about my brand and the team that I built is that we can obviously make things via factories beautifully, and we've got some amazing factories that we work with. But my studio in London is a little atelier, you know, like I've got these amazing interns that we teach skills to who are highly creative, and I'm giving them the opportunity to make some beautiful things that then we can kind of show in Paris Fashion Week. So yeah, I'm excited about showcasing that line in January, and then opening up the beauty line in March. Mark my words, hopefully it doesn't, things change. January is definitely because that's Fashion Week, but beauty, the dates are moving, but so far it's March, so let's see if it's March. So I think the one thing that I pride myself on with my team is that I can go into my studio, I can have a giggle, like I can go in there. The first thing that I like to do is I just like to have a big old gossip with my head of marketing, Ben, and my head of operations, Diani. We go in, we have a gossip, we have a giggle, we have a laugh, we have coffee, we just align with each other. And then we go into our meetings and we kind of look at the business as a whole. You know, I have my design meetings with my design team where I have to put on different hats. You know, I have to think about different things. And ultimately, you know, I am a boss, I'm a manager, I'm leading this team. But my way of leadership is very much rooted in being able to be yourself and to be comfortable and just talking to my team like real people. You know, they're not lower than me. No one is like, you know, better or lower than each other. We're all just trying to tackle and create something. And my creative process usually starts from music. You know, I listen to a lot of music and I walk and I imagine things. And I like to kind of use that as a starting point, because I think music is a really great indicator of where your soul is. You know, like one day you might want to listen to something more romantic, other times you might want to listen to something a bit harder. And ultimately music is that thing that kind of taps you into your soul. So for me, like I also see creativity as that, you know, like I've been given this opportunity to kind of like channel the world around me through this vessel that I'm in. And we start with music, and then it kind of goes into, you know, typical kind of research. So I'm trying to think about things like garment identity. You know, is there a period of time that I want to look at? Is there a specific kind of type of jacket or detailing or tailoring that I want to look at? And then sometimes I write a story. Sometimes I do lots of sketchbooks or make things with my hands. Sometimes I film myself pretending to be a character and speaking to my team as if I'm in this character. You know, I think that that's a beautiful thing about this job, is that you can kind of come at it from any angle. As long as it gives the team some very key elements to be able to design product, then we're okay. Yes, so that was the first collection of the first or the next 10 years of the brand. So the previous collection was obviously a 10-year anniversary, so it was kind of celebrating London. And I think I was sort of looking at something that felt a little bit more kind of like posh and sort of like London as this kind of like elevated place. So then the collection that I wanted to do straight after that was something that felt like the kind of ugly twin of that one. So sort of like a parallel to that collection in its inception. But I was looking a lot at, I guess, that idea of, you know, the fact that we are now meant to be kind of multitudes, you know, like we're kind of expected to either be, you know, left wing or right wing, or you are one sexuality or another sexuality, or you are male or female, you know, these binaries. I like to think of Loverboy as being something that makes you think about being multiple versions of yourself or fluid. So I was sort of thinking about how that could kind of be perceived from a color palette, or how that could be perceived from a detail. So it was quite kind of anarchic, and it was sort of confrontational. And the idea was that we wanted to call the collection "I Am a Product." So it's basically this idea of like, you know, we are seen as these consumerists, you are playing that consumerism game. But I wanted to show that this collection was much more than that. So it was like hyper colorful, hyper pigmented, confrontational. And the way in which we presented it was that I did a performance with my band for this music video. And then in Paris, we did this performance with these dancers called Bully Ache. And it was, again, just this kind of roller coaster of emotions, but through performance, through color, through makeup. But it was meant to really kind of just kind of show this confrontation that we have of two sides. So again, always of lots of multi-layers. You know, it's not just about the seaside. It's about a whole movement and a conversation. I think a collection is like a conversation that you have with somebody. You know, you don't just go over to somebody and you say blue, yellow, okay, bye. You know, you have a multiple sensorial situation. So I think that's how I see a collection. Is it's a paragraph, it's a conversation, it's a passage, it's a chapter. You know. For me, it's so important to have that inclusivity, because it's just the reality of it. You know, it's not just to kind of perform and just say, oh, I'm doing it. It's to actually just kind of like, you know, accept the fact that there is multiple different people that have different viewpoints in the world. And those viewpoints in the world are really useful, because if everybody thought the same and acted the same, or came at the world from the same values, then we wouldn't have this beautiful kind of like diverse place that we live in today. It would be a very boring place. And I think that it encourages people to be empathetic as well. When you're only one human, you know, you're only in your body, and it's hard to be able to be empathetic sometimes when you're in your own head. But I think it's so important to be able to see how other people think about things, and to have another perspective in the world. You know, like, I wouldn't be the person I am today if it wasn't for my friends or random people that I meet on the street. Like, even today, having a conversation with you, it's kind of changed my viewpoint in the world. So I think a brand has to have that openness. You know, I love like brands like United Colors of Benetton, for example, that are always about diversity. It's timeless. You know, you look back at those advertisements from the 90s and the 80s, and they still hold a value to them because they're so expressive. Even brands like Diesel, you know, like Diesel was always championing diversity and inclusivity, and that is a timeless ideology. And you might have politicians now that will try and crush that, but it's never going away. It's like mushrooms, like they will always appear out of the blue, you know, like or flowers or call us weeds or whatever you want. We are not going away, you know. So you've got to be able to, either you're on the right side of history, you're on the wrong side of it. You know, I choose to be on the right side. That's about reality of people. That's about like just the fact that it's so fun and nice to know about how other people think. You know, if you were just like, I don't like this, and I'm like, it's like, come on, you have one life to live as in this body, and you want to choose to just be singular when you could enjoy all different things in this world, you know? So for me, I think the idea about sustainability is to just really think about where you are locally. So this idea of like localism, of like availabilism, like what can you do with the resources that you have around you to create something? So I think that we're kind of trained to think that, okay, I'll get this thing here made here, and then this thing made in all these different places that I'm not even have access to. Like, what can you make around the products that are kind of within your, sort of like, let's say 3 to 4 mile radius, you know, like think about that, like what's the community within that space as well, and how can you kind of use that as a form of sustainability by just kind of just working around the space around you. But then also on top of that, like I would say that, you know, it's not necessarily about an organic cotton or a recycled yarn or an upcycled jacket. I think it's also about like, what does your brand say about the world around it, and how can it help the world around it? Like speaking about this idea of giving back and being kind to other people, is your brand a brand that the world needs? Does it give back to the planet? Is it circular? You know, I think that's what we have to think about, because that's naturally what kind of animals are like. You know, an animal will eat the fruits off of a tree and then it will poop out the nutrients that will then feed the tree to then make the fruits. And it's like, that's how we are as circular. Like us as humans, we've kind of gone down a weird path where we're just taking. But does your business give back to the planet? Does it educate people? It doesn't need to be about a recycled cotton. Does your brand educate people about something? Does it bring people together that are maybe like isolated? I don't know, like these are social things that can also be sustainable as well. Well, I would say it's important to be attuned to what's going on in technology. Like I think we can't ignore the huge shifts that are happening in places like AI. You know, I think a lot of people are scared of it, but I think if it's used in the right way, then it can be an amazing tool. But then I think it's also so important to continue to make things with your hands and learn a skill. A skill is probably the most important thing that I would say to any student right now. Is the education that you're going into giving you one key skill that separates you from somebody else, or allows you to be able to go into any kind of place of work and start assisting them? And I think that ultimately, if you're going to be going into a business or starting your own brand, I think you have to be able to know what is going on in the world around you, and like keeping on top of like things like technology, and then keeping skills that are things that we know are needed in business, like getting those skills up. And then ultimately just like being a good person. You know, I think another thing that people don't talk about is the kind of social side of things. Like a lot of people within this industry get a little bit of success and think that they're, you know, able to be arrogant and rude and treat people differently. Ultimately, like this is a social business. It's a collaborative business. You work always in a team. You can never work by yourself. You know, if you want to be a painter, you can work by yourself. But in fashion, you have to work with people. So just be nice. Like if you're finding yourself being grumpy all the time, learn how to be better with your mood. You know, like understand what's upsetting you. Where's your pride at? Like do a lot of work on yourself. Think about yourself. Like those are skills that are really, really important to have when you're working with a team. And look, I get grumpy sometimes. I can be a bit of a diva, but I tell you what, I definitely love spending time with my team. And I know that, like, you know, it's like water off a duck's back sometimes, but you've just got to be a good person, like be kind, but make sure you make time for people, because you never know what that person's going to be later in life. You know, I think, don't think that you're better than anybody else. I find it really difficult when you see designers just think that they're better than other people. You're just like, you're just another person. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, you're just another person who works in a building, you know? So I think that a bit of humility is very important in this business. So I'm so excited to be here to see the different designers and to get a little bit of a flavor as to like how, you know, Hong Kong has shaped their perspective on the world. And I think what I'm looking for is, I guess, a designer who is really kind of like understood their process, you know, really got confidence behind their process, and that you're seeing is really kind of taking to it and is abundant with what they're doing. And also just seeing how that can translate into the things that we're needing for a fashion designer. It's like not only just the garments that they make, it's not only how it's made, but it's also the paperwork, it's also the storytelling, the vision, the music, how are they curating everything together? I mean, these are all skills that you need. And I think another thing I'm sort of looking for is just whether the subject matter that they are making their designs about, is it kind of relevant to the conversations that we're having right now as a society? I think that's also really important for me to kind of like understand. You know, I think it's great that if something is about a specific history or a specific tradition, but why? You know, why are you interested in that? Or are you just doing it to tick a box? You know, I think that's the thing that will help discern like the difference between these these designers to hopefully pick the winner. So. Well, I mean, there's a few designers that I actually have had the pleasure of mentoring when they first started. So there's a designer called Aaron Esch, who I've known for some time now, and he's up for the Vanguard Award. And I really like his work because he kind of like comes at it again from his kind of friendship group, like how they all dress. And like, you know, like we've partied together, I've had like some fun, you know, we've done lots of things before he was a student and I went in to help him, but then we've kind of made friends. And, you know, his clothes are for the people that he hangs around with. His clothes are for people who he goes clubbing with. And he's got a very specific vision, and he's got starting to work with some interesting people like Alistair Mackey and Katie England and these like old school designers from that time. He's got like a darkness to him. It's really cool. It's really slick. So I really like his work. My biggest advice is to just foster a community around you. So whether that is a creative community that you collaborate with, or it's a community that you kind of find yourself naturally gravitating towards. So it's that idea of like thinking about like where do you see yourself participating most in a group? You know, is it at music festivals? Is it, you know, dressing up and doing makeup in stores? Is it going online and speaking about the video game that you like the most? You know, like, let's think about that as a potential set of tools that you can then bring into your brand. You know, some brands are able to, you know, be timeless because of the community that they started with. You think about kind of skate brands like Stussy, for example. You know, it was based on LA, it was based on the people that were there. And I think that for me, my brand, the reason why we kind of started was because of the club community that we were with. You know, it's kind of a little bit different now because we've been going for 10 years, it's evolved. But I still like to think of like, you know, there's different communities that I'm sort of seeing the brand create itself without my control. You know, like we've got this amazing community in America within the Black population. We've got this amazing community in Asia because of the K-pop stars that love us, and then all the other kind of people that are wearing them because of that. And this is outside of my control, but yeah, my advice to young people is to think about your community, all the people that you collaborate with, you know, or you're friends with. Put your clothes on them. It gives that sense of reality. And, you know, ultimately people want to wear brands because they want to be part of that community. You know, like I want to wear, I'll wear a Stussy t-shirt because one day I want to feel a little bit like a skater, or, you know, I'll wear that with a pair of tights and some heels. And then it's like a really weird juxtaposition. Do you know what I mean? It's like, I think that's, you like to kind of play with these ideas of brands, you know. I think it's really important to keep an eye on what's going on. You know, like I've definitely seen a shift in how people communicate with each other. You know, before people would be kind of interested in meeting up in reality, and sort of like people's communities would be built in spaces like club spaces or gig venues or, you know, galleries even. You know, like people would kind of get together and that would be a place for them to kind of germinate and understand themselves and develop. Whereas now it's through online communities. And it means that you can be, you know, with people all over the world. But then how fashion's role is played in that is interesting because, you know, there's stores that are kind of hubs like here, for example. You've also got places like Dover Street Market. And those kind of carry lots of different brands. But the brands that I think are really exciting, you know, for example, there's a brand called Chipova Luena. You know, like they're so amazing, and they were like a couple of years below me in St. Martin's. And it's interesting because when they first came out, you know, it was such an extreme look. But the reason why it's prevailed is because of the girls that they dress. They're their friends, you know, and then all of these other girls started to see these groups of girls wearing the same thing, and guys. And like, oh my God, I want to look like that. You know, I want to look like Chipova. Like, I want to wear a tight t-shirt with graphics on it and like that kilt, you know? So I don't know. I think that there's still that traditional way in which like clothes can affect things, but I think self-portraiture is a big player in that game. Like how people dress themselves and put themselves out there can really influence how other people dress as well. But yeah, I think it's constantly evolving. I think you do have to keep an eye on it to be able to move forward.